Now we'll be looking at some of the additional features in Illustrator. One of them is global edit. It is kind of useful. I'll just open this file here. It is useful for these kind of files. I've got multiple boards and there's a lot of things and that repeat in all of these layouts. Now I need to make a change here. So I've done all of these UI designs, one for desktop, one for a tablet, and one for a cell phone. Say I want to change this arrow here. But imagine if there was a way I could do it all at the same time with it selected with my selection. Here's a new thing that is called Start Global Edit. Click on it, and if I zoom out, I can see that these other arrows on the different board are all selected together. Now what really happens is, as you select this guy, all the other instances of this guy get selected as well. Now I say instances, no like special thing here. I did not connect them through symbols or anything like that. Illustrator is super clever, which is why we need to grab this tool, direct selection tool, and let me just go ahead and click and make it a little rounded. So kind of rounded corners, and if I zoom out and look at here, I can immediately see the updates happening on all the other arrows on different artboards. There is nothing connecting them. This is just the power of global edit in Illustrator. Now let's say I want to do the same for the tick up here. Click on it. And maybe I'll just do it on this one, on different artboard. This one, okay. Start global edit. And I'll grab my direct selection tool and I'm going to click this and give it a rounded corner right like so. And if I take a look at different artboards, I can immediately see my update happening live. And do that. Select this. Start global edit. I think there's a difference between these two, I guess. And that is why it is not selecting this one. It has a little bit of curve already right there. So I'll just take this out and it's a kind of group, ungroup this. Okay, select this, start global edit, and only this is selected. Let's just choose this, select. Okay, this is option on size. I'll need to choose this off and then select global edit, and now it's selected. If you choose this, it will filter this particularly to that size as well. So now I'm going to make change to this arrow, click and drag, just click and drag. So okay, this much will be updated here as well, as you can see. Now this is a quite similar feature to the feature we call it select same. I want to show you this because it's super helpful, and I'll show you one of the extra benefits of global edit, because they say we're working with this and we are changing the UI color. We're not going to use this kind of red here. See, we're going to select with my arrow selection tool, any of these kind of ray graphics and go select and select same. I'm going to choose fill color. You might not know that these are super helpful. This is not new, but it goes through the whole document. And now it highlights all the reboots. I can go through the new color and maybe choose a different color this time. Right, like so. Now what happens to undo is I want to say just this button here. Now I'm going to do start global edit, and this is where it gets super clever. The software engineers at Illustrator somehow magically worked out the way of saying that I want this particular rectangle. I'm going to start global edit and it goes off, and you can see it's not picking any of the other rectangles up here. It is particularly working on these rectangles. I want to start global edit and it goes off. If you see, I'm not picking any other rectangles all over the place. So it's not this top one. I'm picking on just these guys that we used. Now we can go through it and change the colors right like so. Okay, done. Same for changing all the colors. I'll just undo this step, but then use this global edit just to do the kind of unique things that are similar across all the different artboards. It doesn't even have to be across outputs. It could be within the document, or it's a global edit. It seems kind of know just what I want when I'm selecting things. But there are times when it's just too clever for its own good. So I'm going to go and grab my black arrow. I'm going to select circle here, and I'm going to say start global edit. And it's going to grab this one, these circles around, but it also selected the objects at the bottom here. See the similar circles. It's clever, but that's not what I wanted. So one thing to do, I'm going to do here is I'm going to match the circles that are the same size. So go and click on here and check on this size filter here. So it is going to remove the smaller circle from my global edit selection. Now if I go into the fill option and then choose color, it's gonna only update that particular same size of the circle. So you can give a little bit of help tip for extra help. I'm working on 3 pages down here. You might be working on, like, say, got 50 different sizes. It is super handy when you can select a specific kind of thing. Give it a little bit of try, more refinement over here. Other things in here might help you, like appearance as well. Say I want to stick circles, but only they're on this board. So I can choose a particular range of artboards between 1 and 2. I can type 1, 2, 3, or maybe I want to do 1, 3. Only 1 and 3 will be selected, or maybe all of them 1 to 50 as well. If you put commas, I've got 1, 3, then it will particularly work on 1 and 3 as well. You get the idea. Also in here you can select all the artboards, or you can filter them with respect to portrait artboards, landscape artboards, or square artboards. Maybe you've got designs altered that way, so you can work with the artboard orientation as well. These include the objects on the canvas. So if you end up doing some work here outside the artboard, let's say I have this circle out here scattered around outside the artboard. If I select this and do global edit, just include that. So yeah, now they are in the artboard. Now if I make an update on this, it will also update with the outside objects as well. Now there's so much of stuff here you can work with. You could probably use character styles or something else in a way, maybe select the same thing. But maybe any of these you can think of a way of selecting fonts for walk. And that's what I want. I want to update in the Illustrator. Let's just go ahead and select it. Will be working with the next feature, that is the gradient. Could argue with the gradients are right now if you're one of the people trying to do anything other than a linear or radial gradient. A gradient may be gradients, especially kind of things that are used to give shading. Now let's grab the gradient to where the magic happens. It's over here in the properties panel. Let's just grab on this shape for now, and I'm going to choose a gradient. And here we have three types of gradients: linear, radial, and freeform. It gives a great kind of magical gradients here. Let's just click on freeform gradient. Currently it will just give me 2 spots. You can customize them. I'll grab this one and I can show you the both ways. Sometimes I operate a little differently. So same thing to go freeform gradient. This is one I'm going to keep a bunch of colors here. Tries to guess kind of colors from the swatches. Not really sure where it gets the colors from. Think of a mixture of the swatches and the nearby colors. Sort of Illustrator does the sensory and does that. So I'm going to grab the fin here and I can click on it, double click, and I can change my color. Or I can just go to swatches here, and I have this option to change it to RGB, HSB, in case you are comfortable with other sliders. I'm going to go to swatches, and maybe I'll select this one. I can change the color like that. You can click on here to go back, or you can hit escape. You can double click here and add one more. I'll just click here, double click here, and I'm going to choose the blue one for this shade. Control 0 and I'll just zoom in a bit to take a closer look. Maybe I'll just give a different color here as well, a blue one. I want a blue one here as well, so I'm going to choose blue. And here green as well, so I'm going to choose here, go here, double click, and choose a green one for this one. So that works okay, I guess. Maybe I'll just change the edit gradient and choose this one and bring it all the way in here. This looks a fancy gradient because this just looked like a normal linear or radial gradient, right like here. Maybe I'll just give here, and yeah, that looks pretty much vibrant. And maybe I'll just choose the color, something else here, something else, maybe this or this. That's a gray. Okay, this looks fine. I'll just finalize this. No more changes here. Now let's move on to the next one, next shape, and gradient once again, and choose my freeform gradient. There I have one little, double click here and change the color here. It's gonna give me a flat color. I'm gonna click here, double click here and give that change right like so. You can click on this little circle here and increase the amount of shading throughout the object. Or you could just decrease the shade here, right like so. Yeah, this seems good. It looks more like a linear than a freeform gradient. I'm not taking advantage of a option here that I have here. Let's just take another, maybe here. I'll just choose this to be a blue one. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Increase the shade a bit. And this looks more like a freeform gradient. Alright, so one more thing with the freeform gradient is you can choose the way you want to do this. The one thing we did was with the points, and the other way will be using lines. So here we have a draw points or lines. Let's just go to lines this time, and just like the curvature tool, it will draw a curve wherever you like to follow the shade here. So I'm going to draw a whole curve throughout this shape. Alright, there. Now I'm just going to press escape, and yeah, you can assign colors now. Edit gradient, and we choose here as a okay. So I have points now, and choose this one. Right, that one. Double click here, a green one, and here I'm gonna have a blue one, and then again a green one. So I'm going to keep repeating the sequence, and you know the gist of it. Green one, and finally the blue one. So this kind of looks like amalgamation of linear, and I don't need this, so I'll just select this and press delete button, and there it is gone. But if you want, you can keep it like so, and maybe I'll just keep it some green here, a little bit of green. That works fine for me here. So increase the shade in case you want to. Has a limited range, cannot be more than this. In case you want more, you can click here and get one more shade as well. There. And there I have my whale with the freeform gradient ready. Let's move on to another shape here. I have this. I can just go in here and maybe just copy this. You can also copy gradients using Eyedropper tool. I can just click here and it will copy the gradient right like so. It's kind of a two shape, up and down. So maybe I'll need to do is change the direction of this. Maybe it's a gradient and click and drag. And I don't think that's gonna work because I'm gonna need a line freeform gradient here. And one more here. Okay, so I'm gonna choose this, double click here, eyedropper, and choose this shade. Double click here. So you can also steal gradients right like so. And maybe I'll just keep one more edit gradient, one point here, double click, eyedropper and sample. Alright, that on this one is kind of a bit darker, so I'm going to go here, choose this, double click, I'll click here, eyedropper, and that is going to be a little dark on the side. Okay, that seems about right, but we have a little darker shade here, so let's just follow along with that. And seems like a linear gradient would do good here, so let's just choose a linear sample and do the same here. Okay, maybe I just need to switch that off, and instead of here I can just reverse the gradient, and yeah, that works fine. And maybe I'll just increase the highlight area within there, and that seems to be about right. Now for the other shape here, maybe I'll just sample this, and yeah, that looks fine as well. So that's how you can use the free form gradient in the Illustrator. The next feature is to do with fonts in Adobe, calling it enhancing visual font browsing play along. Now opening up this file, I can click on this using my black arrow, and you'll notice that the character panel here, I'll click on this little drop down, and things are new here. Now the basic thing is you can see the preview takes over all. Here you can decide to look at small stuff. You can reduce the size using this. This is the medium size, and this is the large size. It gives you a bit of a sense of the font, and also at the moment it's giving you can see it is as a word. And there's an option which is pulling down from here. Now you can select the typography here, and a little bit consistent with this, all of them are looking the same with the same word. Here there are a few other options as well. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, the alphabet, and all of this, and Roger Hungry ate 236 peaches and cantaloupes in 1904, depending on what's your requirement. Typography is quick and small, that gives you most of the gist of it. I like the one that is just nice, clear and consistent. Another new option is here. It shows you the recently worked with fonts. Okay, so here you have recently used fonts. Recently added. I have currently added these of the fonts right now, and it will show up right away when I click on this option. It can appear on the top if that's what you want. Even still, you won't find it, but still make sure you're finished to click it off again, because like on off a couple of things you have moved around. As you can see, all my fonts down here, instead of having to look like the one on the favorite. Let's say I like this font, I can click on this and add to favorites. And maybe I like this one as well, so I'm gonna add this and add this one and to my favorites. I love these fonts, and I'm going to add. So this is not something that's new here, but what you can do is you can click on this, and there you'll find all your favorite fonts that you have selected. Now there's no point of having this giant list and wanting to go through all of them one by one. Now there's one more option that is called find similar. Let's say I will choose this recently added fonts. Here maybe I want similar. Click on this similar to fonts, and it is going to immediately show up with some of the fonts that are kind of similar. It kind of gets pretty close, but not very accurate. Maybe it's not. One other thing to note here is that you need to remember going back here to go back to your actual drop down menu. Now here you have the show activated fonts. If you're using Adobe Creative Cloud and you're logged in, and then you will be able to see the fonts that you have activated from Adobe Fonts. This used to be called Typekit, and you could download a lot of Typekit fonts from here. And now they have changed the name to Adobe Fonts. Same thing, but the icon has changed, and that's not showing used to this cloud with these techniques. One of the cool things is you don't need to download fonts anymore when you have this access. You don't have to jump out to the website as much as anymore. It just finds the font for you from here right away. It's like having a font library that we had not had to steal from the different work. All cool sorts of fonts you can actually say you can find here, and find the visually similar ones as well. And once you can select the font, they will be automatically installed into your Creative Cloud account, and you will be good to go. The next feature is kind of good and bad. It will drive you mad if you're an experienced Illustrator user. So for me, what's doing now is seeing the UI on the outside has gotten a lot bigger. So have a look at the original version. You have this different version, and then it will be cut off from here and here as well. So if you have plugged MacBook Pro or some big 4K LG monitor, then it will be helpful to you. So you can bump up the size and going through the edit menu, preferences, and here you have user interface. Currently it is set to small. Depending on your monitor, it will have different sections. Currently I have 3 only. Just bump it up and it will give me the size of this. Changes will take effect next time you start Illustrator, so make sure you restart your software in order to see the changes. On a Mac, if you go to Illustrator CC Preferences, then you go to this UI, find that interface slightly in different place, but it is still called a user interface. You can use Command K as a shortcut and then go to U as an interface, and you'll end up at same place here. So I'd like to keep it small for now, but if you want to see them bigger, you can obviously click and drag, and it will immediately take place. The effect will change place, and once you open the document. So I'm going to just click cancel here. So next one we have is let's say I'm going to draw a circle here, right? This is a really handy option for people. Now I have my direct selection tool. Let's click here. I have got one of this document. I want this handle size to be bumped up a little bit. So all these anchor points in hand were quite small. but when you zoom in level is here, kind of same size. So instead of going to user interface, you need to go to the other option, that is from here, edit, menu, preferences. Choose this one, selection and anchor display. And here you can, this is by default minimum size. You can give a much bigger size. You can also choose options here, show handles when multiple anchors are selected. Just go ahead and give OK. And now you can see that the size has bumped up this much. These things are really fiddly to work with, so I'm going to go back to something that is a little bit more manageable on PC. Again, this really depends on the size of the monitor or the laptop screen you're using. It's not really an upgrade, but more in cases it's bothering you, you can go to right to the next feature. And I'm going to change this back to this. Also, you can change the handle styles from here as well, and bunch of other options here that you can explore, and a lot more stuff, which is self-explanatory. Now we'll be moving on to the next feature, that is the puppet pin. So the next feature will be the puppet pin, and if you're following along something I will show before puppet pin, in case you don't see your puppet pin tool in your toolbar box, then you have to click on this option, that is additional features, all tools here, and then tidy up the toolbar here to the ones that are mostly used to make it easy. That's within here. In case you have the basic toolbar, it will look like this, and you will not be able to see your puppet warp tool. And let's go here, maybe use your puppet warp tool, find it, yeah, there it is. So I'll add it back to this position here. Let's go back here. I'm getting two options here. One is I can place it within the group here, and one that I can place it separately, individually, that will look here. So maybe I'll just choose to keep it here, and if you switch to advanced, in case you're advanced, you've already done that, but this is something by default is basic, and it used to be advanced, and then you will get a whole bunch of tools. Also, you can change the view as well. And then you have this long stack of tools. It brings up a good point. There's lots of things in here we don't use, so you might want to experiment here is go and add the ones that I don't actually use. You can go here, and I don't use this draw tool, and don't use this as well. Okay, I'll use this fill and stroke options, so I'm going to keep those. Also, you can change the view of all the tools right like so. And I'm going to go back to my toolbar. Now that the toolbar is set up and I know my tool is here, I'm going to click on this, and first of all I'm going to select this object, use this tool, and it will take a while to load up the pins for the object you have selected, depending on the complexity of the object. But this is a relatively simple object, so it came up within a one click. So in case it takes kind of a while, then don't worry, it's alright. And So I'm able to see the pins here. I can click and drag, and that portion of the wheel will be dragged. So click and drag this rose. We want to change the position of the tail. I can do that as well. Or maybe I want to change the fin or the mouth. Then yeah, I can do that, but make sure these all are interlinked. And wherever the puppet pin is, it is trying to hold that area and trying to stay at that particular point. So in case I don't want, let's say, this portion to, let's say if I move this, and you can see that this cut also moves, but if I pin it here and if I move that, you see that it tries to hold down that area of the body. Also, you can choose this to not show mesh or maybe show mesh. Mesh mode, you can increase this, maybe if you want to. This will increase the complexity of the pin. Let's say I want to give it 5 pixel. It's going to be much more stronger than it actually was before. Let's just keep it at 2 pixel. It was quite decent. I can also have an option of select all pins, and in case you don't want to, you want to change the pins or maybe just delete, just select this pin and go ahead and hit delete button. What else you can do with this? You can click on this pin and click on here. When you see the rotation, you can also rotate this tail of the object. So let's try the same thing over this object. Maybe I'll just select using my selection tool and click on puppet pin, and there I have my pins right away. It kind of automatically scan through the whole object and try to find out the flow of it, where it goes. So I can make kind of a difference like so, and I can change the position of my object right like so, or maybe I want to do a little bit of turn or twist, depends on what my requirement is. There, it is going to make it more complex. Or maybe the fin I want somewhere else, someplace else, and that can mess up my, I'll just delete this, it'll go back to original, this one as well. Alright, this can be useful most probably in the characters. I'm gonna use my pen tool, and I could easily make this puppet animate and make a few different positions, maybe make a walk cycle out of it. I can pre-make the positions of this character and then go ahead and export this different poses into animate, and I can easily make a cartoon movie of any sequence with this character or any other character. So this way it can be useful mostly in the animation process, and there are other uses as well. So let's say if I have this, I'll place it here, move it up, and go ahead and use the puppet pin. I can just pin it here, and then maybe I'll just click and drag, click here and there. Make sure you choose the right puppet pin and click and drag. Maybe I want to drag it all the way right up here. I'll just put one more below, and that will just keep it like so. So you can get the gist of it, how this works. But it kind of needs a little bit of refinement as well. And proper planning also works better in this case. Click and drag and touch it to the border here. This one as well. I don't want this to move, so I'll just put one more pin there, and maybe okay. I want the E to be up, so it's okay if that moves. Let's put more pin here, and maybe I'll just put it like right like so. One more pin here. extend here. There's another tool called envelope distort, in case you want to kind of do this by itself automatically. That can do the job as well, but this can be useful for doing such type of typographies and so forth. Maybe I'll just put it right like so and extend it here. Click here, click and drag, click here, and maybe I'll set this up, put it right like so, up here and there. So you get the gist of it. You can use making such kind of creative typographies as well. And also the character. This one is a fairly simple character. You can select all of it. Use the puppet pin, and puppet pin kind of did a good job in finding out where I exactly want them. So I can click on here. I can make this guy dance, or maybe I want to put him in a different position. I could do that in just a few clicks using the puppet pin tool. So it can be used in certain conditions, obviously. And that's the gist of the puppet pin tool. Next feature is to do with the properties panel. So what they've done, they've tried to streamline all these panels here, and just to make the work kind of a little bit easier in Illustrator while working. Say I'm going to use this direct selection tool. I'm going to click here and I'm going to choose this anchor point. Now I have an option here that is called the corners. Was not there before. It's nice and easy here. I can increase it to some physical increment, 0.1 centimeter. And make sure they meet all the top say disintegrant at the moment, but you can just type in the tweaks and press enter, and that'll do justice for us. Let's say about 2 centimeter. Give tab, and there gives me that. Spot 0.2. It is not going beyond that. There's a limit to this. Also, if you want to change the unit here, you can just go ahead and press Ctrl R and right click here, and instead of centimeters you can go and use pixels. Now if I use my direct selection tool, click on this, and now you see that this is now being displayed in pixels. I can do 2 pixels, and there it goes back to 2 pixels. Now I'm going to grab what the tool is like, a little up and bow and arrow here, and that is the width tool. Let's just make this one like it was before. Like this is the width tool. The earlier versions did have this tool, but you probably have case and grab any of these lines and drag them out. And this is what you can probably do with this tool. For the adjustment to actually brought with the stroke. So when I go back to my stroke or width profile option, shows up in here, width, stroke. I'll just select this, and you can see that you have a different kind of a stroke coming up, showing up here, which is, let's just bring it back to normal, and there it came back to normal-ish. And always you can just bring down the stroke Say I want to flip it, you click on this and flip this. Here you can bring it here, and when you see the plus sign you will be able to access this tool and make another thickness as well. Here click and drag. So this way you can customize the stroke just like so. Well, let's take a look at a different option, that is the blend option. Here I have some shapes here using the blend options. Here I want to use that one as well, so I'm going to use my width tool. Select this and go to width tool. Click here and drag. See the plus sign, and then click here and drag. And that's the stroke I would like to have. Now this turn off this one. I'll keep it a little thinner than this compared to this one. You'll just select both of these, and I'm gonna go ahead and use my blend tool. The shortcut is W for this. And whenever you see the plus sign here, it will magically make one option here. You can customize this going into double click on this option, or maybe you can just click on this, choose here specified steps, and maybe increase these. I'll keep it 7, 8 maybe, or 10 depending on what you want here, and go ahead and give OK. The idea of that line is kind of faked. Now with these lines, they can look a little bit more better with the drop shadow. So just adding a little bit of drop shadow. Let me show you next effect here. Let's say select this and go to effect, go to stylize, and you have an option here called drop shadow. Click on this, and it'll come up with certain properties. It shows blend mode, the opacity percentage, X offset and Y offset, and a little bit of blur point. So I'm going to choose this and put it to 40%, and it makes it less harsh shadow. And let's say I'll just bring it down to 1 point by 1 point. And maybe I'll just reduce the blur to maybe 2 points. This seems to be alright. I'm gonna go ahead and give OK. Let's take a look. It looks kind of fine. And if I select this, I'll get my drop shadow right here. And if I want, I can just delete it, or maybe I can click here and re-edit the effect. I have all my settings that I set up earlier. Go ahead and give OK here. Now what you can do is just find one like this, and if there's an effect applied, you can just hit the trash can. It only works if the effect is applied. Let's just select all of these and just give effect apply drop shadow. It'll come up with the drop shadow that I earlier applied, and all of these objects are now having this drop shadow. These do not, because there's some discrepancies here. Okay, in this case you need to group the item here. Okay, that seems fine. Okay, these were individuals and they got drop shadow later. Now, one more update for this is the variable font member. Let's just take a font here. And I'm going to choose a variable font. Just delete that. Variable here. So I have an option here, variable font. If I click on this, I'll just first of all increase the size here to 100 maybe. Okay, it's now much more legible. And maybe change the color to white. I'll just press D, default colors, go to stroke and give none. It gives a little faster white. D and just press that. Okay, so we have the variable font option here. This will be working only on the variable type font. The magic to pick any of these ones is we can actually customize the weight, particularly the weight. We can customize the width as well. We can make them condensed or non-condensed. And maybe I want to slant these as well. Or maybe I want to be somewhere in the middle, not too slant, not too standing at all. So this is a fine method of customizing the font with just one few clicks. I don't have to go through all of these extra options. They are presets, but yes, I can use them. This one as well. And maybe if there is a setting, like if I want to click on this, maybe let's say width is something like this, and maybe size. This is something the preset would not have, probably. Maybe I want to set 8.4. This is something the preset would not have. And maybe this is my own customized variable type font. You won't be able to see anywhere. I can create unique acumen variation of this font using this option. So that's it for the updates to the properties panel. And there's actually something to do with the size, the actual size. And we will be looking at the next feature. Now we have an option called that is the actual size. Now these two flyers are made out from the A4 size. You can access actual size going to view menu. Here you have an option of an actual size, or you can use the Control-1 shortcut to access this. Now if you take a A4 size paper and overlap this, you will find out that this is actually an A4 sized width. Your screen should actually be showing that size right now. I'm going to hit F couple of times. F to get the full screen mode. So that kinds of get into a sort of little dividers and stuff. I'm going to jump back to the actual mode now using the F as well. And you can take this and actually use a compare with the A4 size paper, and it will be exactly the same thing. Now moving on, we have another update that is called the presentation mode. If you go to the view menu, so just previously I used the F a couple of times to go to the full screen mode. That is something very similar to this, but not exactly the same. So when I go into view menu and go to presentation mode, it kind of removes the background and it only shows up this right now. I can use my arrow keys, and it is like a presentation slide, and I I can toggle between these two flyers that I have here. So it excludes everything else in a way and makes this full screen. You can use your cursor and can afford going forward or backward like you're using a PowerPoint presentation. You can use Illustrator to kind of design and really make a nice presentation and present it straight from your computer into a big data project or a big TV screen and not have to kind of hop through either PowerPoint or MXS Keynote. Might be just pitching your design ideas to the client on your computer. Sort of all the stuff in the background can cycle through it. Escape gets you out of it. One of the other ones is the new and quite cool. This is a document set up with bleeding. You see the corners? It has the crop marks here on all sides of the page. And also there is a black line and the bleed as well. So this is here will be the trimming happening and thrown back in the bin. Working with it's a kind of a pain sometimes. So if you want to get rid of these edges or any of these stuff here, you can actually access them by going to the view menu. And there it is. They have the trim view. Here, trim view. So it will give me the actual document here. Just cuts down everything that's in your pasteboard and only shows you everything on the board. Well, the canvas hates to disappear like that in design we have ever done. You can use the W key to go to the preview mode. You might even say that there's some cut to there's no cover at the moment. You love to go in the shortcuts and make them all right. There's one more thing I would like to discuss is to make it easier to work with gradients, so different from freeform gradients. This one is called find a gradient. I'll just go to properties and I was here, the gradient. Okay. Let's remove the stroke for now. Maybe I'll just get a stroke of 1 point or maybe 2, maybe less than that. Yeah, this was the stroke that we had earlier. So Control 0, fit to screen. So now if I access the gradient from here, panel, I have something like this. And I need to select this. The layer is locked, I guess. F7, unlock the layer, and go back. Okay. So now that I have selected this, I can see that these are the few things that I can work with. Say I want to change the color from here, from some image, hang it up here. I can use the eyedropper tool, and maybe I'll just choose this color, and that color will just appear in the middle here, just like so. Double click here and maybe change it from here as well. And earlier it did not have this eyedropper option right away, and these options are now relatively easier to control with. You can just go ahead and use gradient and maybe just customize the gradient right like so. Also you can change the shading, hard or soft, from here using these little sliders. And these circles will move around the colors, and this will work for the shading. This here moves the gradient right like so, and I can extend or contract the gradient right like so. And so that's about it. And one more feature that we can discuss is having the Control Y option, that is the outline mode. You can, while drawing, if you want things to be overlapping each other properly, you can use this mode and can properly align things in case the stroke is getting in the way. That mostly does. So you can always switch to outline mode, Control Y is the shortcut, and make your sketches properly align with the stroke. And that's about it with the additional features.